Does ACOTAR hold up now that my prefrontal cortex has developed? I'm gonna be honest, I'm not too sure. With what opposable thumbs? Ew. You can't just say my bowels turned watery. Standing before me was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. It is so horrifically cringy. Okay, well, recent tortured you. Hey guys, my name is Emma. I go by the YouTube name Side Quests and Storylines. Thank you so much for being here. With the new ACOTARs coming out soon, I realized I still love this series, but it has been so long since I've actually read it. So I figured, okay, let's do a reread, which I usually don't reread books. So this was kind of a fun experience. I thought, let's do a reread. I've been really into YouTube reviews of books lately, so I was like, you know what? Why don't I just make my own? So yes, we are going to be reviewing ACOTAR today. I first read ACOTAR when I was like 19, 20, 21, kind of around that age range. So I think I was the target audience because like Feyre is 19 at the start of the series. So I feel like I probably resonated with her a lot more the first time around. So I was curious now that, I'm 26, I have my full brain and I have a little bit more life experience and my reading tastes have changed, possibly. I wanted to see what I thought of the books, if I still really liked them, and if they were as magical as they were when I still didn't have my full brain development. So let's go through this together and enjoy. Okay, so this is your official warning, full spoilers ahead. I'm going to be talking about key plot points, talking about the book and the series as a whole. So if you have not read the entire A Court of Thorns and Roses series, please click off. I also have not read any of SJM's other works. So I know that can kind of like really improve the reading experience or, make you think maybe these books aren't as good as the other ones, but I haven't read those, so I don't know. So first, let me show you. I tabbed books. I rarely tab books, but this was actually really fun, and I think I would totally do it again. So I'll show you my key. It's right here. So key plot points are in purple. Faye Sand is pink. Side characters stand out is kind of this like light greenish color. Spicy scenes are the orange. Favorite moments are the blue. And of course, we got to include cringe, which is a light pink. Okay, my very first thought upon rereading the book was, I forgot she was an archer. And then I was like, wait, her last name is Archeron. I don't know if that was intentional by SJM. It probably was because it's a little too on the nose, but that one did get me. So the first chapter goes off kind of without a hitch. I feel like it's a nice kind of emo way to start the book. She's suffering, she's going through it, all that jazz. Feyre goes, I soiled myself, then vomited right on the stones before the hearth. Why does SJM have such a fixation with like bodily fluids and not even like the spice scene context? This is just like anytime a character is scared, they're pooping their pants or vomiting somewhere or peeing on the floor. And me personally, I love a good fantasy book that pretends that no one has to go to the bathroom ever. So I would have loved less emphasis on bathroom happening as a stress response. I also thought, so like the first time around that I read this book, I was like, oh my gosh, Feyre is incredible. Like, look how strong she is. And like, I think she is a great character. However, it's very one-sided. Like already by page 13, the dynamic is like everyone else is horrible, bad character with no redeeming qualities, and Feyre is selfless and perfect. So I would have loved to see a little more nuance, especially because SJM does go on to write Nesta and then presumably Elaine's stories. And so she has to do a lot of catching up to make these characters even semi-likable again because they get such a bad edit in this book. And I get it, like, the tone makes sense, right? Feyre's starving. She's annoyed because she has to be the only one in the family who goes out and finds food. But still, I think SJM did herself a little bit of a disservice when later on she had to go back and be like, okay, well, they're not all bad guys, which, yeah. I also wrote, when Feyre was talking about like the bed that she and her sister shared, yeah, just a lot of things happened on, like, her mom died and gave birth on that bed. Like, me personally, I would have liked a different bed. All right, let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's get to the good part. So there's an instant at the very beginning of chapter 4, and this is when Feyre comes across Andres in the forest. And this is a quote that I feel like really kind of sums up her character very nicely, because as we see in ACOMAF and the other books in the series, when Feyre is alone, she is most prone to despair. But oh, my AC kicked on. I hope that's not too loud. But when she's alone, she is most prone to like despair and letting herself wallow in it. But when she has to like work for other people or show up for other people, she absolutely does. So this is the quote. It says, "Had I been alone in the woods, I might have let myself be swallowed by fear, might have fallen to my knees and wept for a clean, quick death. But I didn't have room for terror, wouldn't give it an inch of space despite my heart's wild pounding in my ears." So I just really like that. I think that sums up Feyre's character pretty nicely. Oh, and then I have my first tab. This is a favorite moment. Why is this a favorite moment? Oh, it's when Tamlin shows up, and then I like the nuance of like Nesta choosing. I mean, I feel like Nesta's kind of a realist. She's like, well, we're not all getting out of here, so she leaves Feyre and protects her sister Elaine, which, I mean, I still like Nesta a lot. I'm just going to show my cards right now, and her book is my favorite in the entire series, which we'll see if that changes with the reread. But I just thought it was kind of funny. Nesta's just like such a realist. She's like, okay, well, I've done the math, and not all of us are going to live, so I'm going to go ahead and pick my favorite. It's very honest. Now, this next thing bothered me significantly and frequently throughout this book. Tamlin in his beast form is like a monster slash animal, okay? He's described as like, you know, having talons and having claws and, you know, like a beastly face and like an animal body. Okay, this page, what page is it? It's page 39. And it's like, so this is when Feyre, like, she shoots an arrow at Tamlin in beast form. And it goes, he pulled out the ash arrow, sniffed, and snarled at it. With what opposable thumbs? How does he have like talons and he's like a beast on all fours and he's just like picking it up, pulling out an arrow, and then like throwing it away? Like, what is his dexterity level with these talons? This got brought up so many times in this book, and I just could not get over it. I think I actually tabbed it like every single time, saying with what thumbs. Just to recap where we are, the book opens. Feyre is hunting in the woods because her family is starving. She comes across a wolf, realizes it's a fairy. She has hate in her heart for the fairies who have like, I don't know, hunted them for centuries and left them to die on the other side of the wall. So she takes an ash arrow, which is known to be what kills fairies, pulls her bow, you know, the trigger goes off. She kills Andres the fairy, and then she goes home. She like skins the wolf and like brings what she can of it home. Her sisters are super excited. They're like, wow, you're gonna, you know, make us so much money. Next day, Tamlin in beast form shows up, breaks down their house, and he says, you know, a human life in exchange for a fairy life is what the treaty says, so you will come with me. So this is the end of chapter 4, the beginning of chapter 5. Feyre is now on her way to the fairylands, leaving her family behind. Tamlin and Feyre get back to his mansion, and it says, the beast plopped into the chair. Why is a beast sitting in a chair, by the way? The wood groaning, and in a flash of white light, turned into a golden-haired man. I stifled a cry, and I wrote, ah, a blonde man. I'd be scared if a blonde man just suddenly appeared too. Also, is Tamlin clothed? Like, I know they have magic, but I would just like a little more logistical information on this. If we can describe our bowels being watery when we're scared, we can let the audience know if the clothes go in and out when he's phasing. I assume they do because they don't mention him naked, but I personally would like that level of closure. Honestly, the first part of the book, it's a little like slow, which I know a lot of us probably think that because we're there for our main man. So here's another point I really like. It's on page 102 at the very end of chapter 11. So Feyre is in the spring court. She's kind of adjusting, and she's having a nightmare of when she killed Andres. So she says, it wasn't a wolf that hit the snow. It was a man, tall and well-formed. No, not a man, a high fae with those pointed ears. I blinked, and then my hands were warm and sticky with blood. Then his body was red and skinless, steaming in the cold, and it was his skin that I held in my hands. And then she keeps going. But I commented, ew, because that's the most important part. But then also I noted that like the early spring court chapters have like this kind of layer of horror over them that I thought was really creative to include, because you can kind of feel that something isn't right. I think SJM does a good job of making it seem like all sparkly and pretty and nice, but then Feyre will have these nightmares, or she'll see something out of the corner of her eye, or she'll hear voices that aren't there. And you just kind of feel this like sense of unease, which I really liked, and I don't think I picked up the first time I read through this, because I am going to be honest with you, I didn't remember any of the first half of this book. We're kind of getting to know Feyre a little bit better, and we see that one of her core characteristics, or even what I would call one of her fatal flaws, is that she just desperately needs to have someone to take care of. We see this when she takes care of her family. You know, she's the youngest. She doesn't have to step up. I get it. There's the self-interest of being starving and, you know, wanting to feed yourself, but she could have just fed herself. But she takes care of her family. Then she takes care of Tamlin and Lucien. Then Rhys takes care of her briefly, but then like she takes care of people as High Lady, and then she immediately gets pregnant, has a baby, and takes care of the kid. So like, even though Feyre goes through a lot of healing and changes and challenges in the book, one thing about her that stays very consistent is she like needs someone to take care of, which I think that's an interesting characterization as the younger sibling. I mean, I'm not a younger sibling, but I just wouldn't think that that would be the case. Also, why did SJM make Lucien a better and more compelling love interest than Tamlin? Like, in the first read through, I was fully shipping Lucien because I knew that Feyre didn't end up with Tamlin, but I didn't know about Rhysand. So I was like, oh, obviously it's Lucien. Like, he's funny. Like, listen to this. He's like, I'll be conveniently hunting on the grounds, and with my superior hearing, I might be feeling generous enough to listen if someone screams from the western woods. But it's a good thing I had no role in telling you to go out today, since Tam would eviscerate anyone who told you how to trap a Suriel. And it's a good thing I'd planned to hunt anyway, because if anyone caught me helping you, there would be trouble of a whole other hell awaiting us. It's just, he and Feyre both have like this rebellious streak that I think makes them really compatible in a way that she and Tamlin just do not share. He's very like, ooh, and Lucien is like, he's a little sarcastic. He's got a little bit of rebellion to him, and I think I'm not alone when I say I wish they had been together. But I mean, obviously, Rhysand is better. He's the one we all prefer, but I just don't love Tamlin. I know we're meant to not love him, but he's just boring. He's so boring. Yeah, and then on 127, we see the phrase, my bowels turned watery, and my comment says, SJM, what the hell does that mean? Like, did Feyre just poop herself in the forest? I have to know, like, did you pee? Like, you can't just say, my bowels turned watery. Keep using it throughout the entire series, and then just, like, not tell us explicitly what that means. Like, girl, do you have a tummy ache? Like, I don't know. I think Feyre has IBS. That's my main takeaway of this reread. For the Suriel goes, stay with the High Lord. Something I didn't love is that the Suriel is referred to as both it and he, and I don't know why. That kind of bothered me. I don't know, feels like that could have been caught in editing, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. It just makes me feel smart to catch errors. On page 143, Tamlin says, is this a poem about murdering me and then burning my body? And I literally commented, Tamlin's first personality moment. So yeah, he's like dry, but not in a funny way, and just like a saltine cracker, but with even less salt. It's like a wet saltine cracker. Ugh. And then the first cringe that I flagged throughout the entire book, Feyre says, I shoved it into my pocket. I turned, but he gently grabbed my arm. You gave up so much for them. He lifted his other hand as if to brush my cheek. I braced myself for the touch, but he lowered it before making contact. Do you even know how to laugh? Oh, that's giving like, I don't know, it's giving like Disney Channel original movie where it's like, I don't know, it's just icky. I'm like, I don't like that. What do you, like, in what world would you ask someone, do you even know how to laugh? It's just like, it's a cringy, lazy way to remind us that Feyre is damaged. On page 176, Tamlin is telling Feyre about his parents, and he's saying that his parents were mates, but they were badly matched. And then I remember in like Akamath, Rhysand says something similar. He's like, they're mates, so they love each other, obviously, but like they boil down to the same thing. Dad's cruel, mom's either too timid or like a free spirit, but they can't leave because the mate bond keeps them like in love. I don't love that. But I would really like to explore that a bit more, possibly. I mean, like, obviously I don't want Elaine and Lucien to be happy or to be unhappy, and I'm not even sold on them being real mates anyway. I don't know. I think it's interesting how like Nesta and Cassian and Feyre and Rhysand, and there are other mates in this book, right? I feel like it happens a lot. Okay, maybe it's not, but I do want to see one of those pairings because I want to see how that plays out like in all practicality. I don't know. It just seems interesting that both of their parents have like the same backstory almost, and then it's not repeated at all in later stories. Okay. Page one. Actually, you know what? Let me recap. Let me recap where we're at. Okay. Feyre has been in the spring court. She and Tamlin are getting closer. There was randomly a pool of starlight, I think, at some point. They kiss. He kisses her hand. She can't handle it. Whatever. Like, that's their thing. The summer court fairy is dropped on their doorstep. He dies. Feyre's realizing like more things are wrong. She catches the Suriel. She's chased by all sorts of monsters. Anyway, so all this is happening, right? So Tamlin is like, girl, something is wrong. Like, do not leave the premises. Stay very close to home. All this. But it's Calanmai, also Fire Night, I think is the translation that they use. But so Feyre obviously sneaks out because why wouldn't she? And she goes, standing before me was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. Yeah, much better than Tamlin. I just think if you're supposed to be like in love with someone and then you go, the most beautiful man I've ever seen, I don't know. I feel like, girl, Feyre, that should be a little bit of a clue. That should be a clue, but she didn't take it. So then later, Rhysand is like, oh, he moves quickly or something. And Feyre writes, faster than anything should be able to move. I said, okay, Edward. Also, I think the Twilight vampires are high fae. And I will unpack that later. But there are too many similarities. Like, they're written so similarly. The Twilight vampires are not vampires. They're high fae. And I'm going to stand on that one. I flagged the next page as cringe because, like, the whole concept of Calanmai or Fire Night is just, it is so horrifically cringy. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, essentially the king of the land, like, strips off his shirt and goes and sniffs women until he finds one that smells nice enough to, do. And then their completion fuels the land with magic for a year. Like, that is objectively one of the most cringy and disturbing and disgusting things, like concepts to think about. Because, like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean the king of the land is going to go sniff ladies until he finds one, and then their joining will fuel the land with magic for years to come, or for the whole year? That's just, I hate this. I wrote, that is literally so embarrassing for literally everyone there. I would not survive in the spring court. Yeah, I just tagged this whole section as cringe, actually. Then I did tag a spice scene on page 196, but not because it's actual spice, but because it's like it's weirdly explicit for like the limited interaction they're having. So I think this book was probably meant to be more YA, and the rest of the series obviously is more adult focused. But I think that's a little bit concerning because then, you get the YA audience starting the series, but then it ages up in between. So I don't know. That's just, I think it either should have like honestly portrayed itself as an adult style book, or it should have stuck YA the whole time. Well, that's just me. Feyre, obviously, she sneaks out. She goes to Calanmai. She bumps into Rhysand. People are being creepy. He rescues her. I think he like abandons her shortly after that. Like, they go their separate ways. Tamlin finds Feyre after he's done the do with some random lady in a cave. And then he corners Feyre and bites her. And it's very uncomfortable to read. But that's the quick and dirty of the Fire Night chapters. Then after that, there's a really cute chapter where they're having some type of celebration, and Feyre drinks some fairy wine, and she's like dancing, and she's a little bit, tipsy, and she's seeing like all like the beautiful colors of the spring world and like all the sound of the bugs. And that really was like the first part of this book that felt like fae or otherworldly. For the beginning of it, it felt like it could have taken place in like a rich person's house in the human realm. But this scene I really liked because it really just shows like this world is other. This world is fae. This world is Prithian. And I wish we would have gotten more of that setting throughout the whole spring court chapters. Because I just feel like, I don't know, it's page 228. It's a little late for like me to get the first feeling of like, oh yeah, like this is Prithian. This is cool. That's just my thought. So in the next set of chapters, Feyre and Tamlin, they're continuing to get closer. I think they're at dinner and Rhysand shows up. And, Tamlin says, Feyre, go hide. And she just like goes behind a curtain. So that was a terrible hiding spot. So obviously Rhysand knows she's there. So he he taunts them. He does his little thing. And then Tamlin like destroys the dining room out of rage because he couldn't stop Rhysand from like teasing them essentially. And I wrote down, I was like, it is wild to me that Feyre is not at all concerned about Tamlin's rage. And this, I think, is like the first divide in my first read as a younger adult, and my second read is like a more adultier adult, I guess. The first time I read this through, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even see a problem with how Tamlin had reacted. Honestly, I was like, oh, he's mad. He's protecting his woman. Like, oh, he's just frustrated. He's expressing his anger, and it didn't really register as something problematic. But like the second time reading this through, I was like, that is a red flag. That is a scary behavior. Like if one of my friends was dating a guy and she's like, oh yeah, like he got into a confrontation with someone else and then destroyed the dining room because he was mad after, I would be like, okay, let's go get your stuff, get you out of there, and then keep an eye on him. I think that was kind of one of the first instances where I was like, okay, yeah, a younger reader, at least me as a younger reader, I don't want to generalize too much, doesn't flag how bad Tamlin's rage was. Whereas now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit more experienced in life, I can definitely see like that is a major concerning behavior. And so like from how I'm thinking of it, I'm just a little worried about how this is a young adult novel. Like, maybe younger women wouldn't be concerned like I wasn't. So I don't know, that's just something to kind of watch out for if you're reading this book. Like Tamlin's cool, like he's meant, like SJM walks a fine line because we have to like Tamlin enough to make this story believable. But also she's sowing the seeds of Feyre leaving him in the second book. But it's just got to keep your eyes open for like these scenes where Tamlin's like obviously not ready to have a partner in any kind of capacity because he can't handle his own anger. And that is scary. Then Feyre and Tamlin have a together scene, and there are just like lots of like animalistic, beastly descriptive words, and I don't love that. It made me a little uncomfortable, actually. And again, because I'm a Nesta girly, I feel like I disproportionately flagged Nesta moments in this book because she's just like my favorite character in the whole series. Oh, hi, buddy. You want to come up here? You want to come cuddle while we read? He says maybe. But Nesta says, why are you being so quiet? Nesta said, keeping her distance. And then Feyre writes, I'd forgotten how cunning her eyes were, how cold. She'd been made differently, from something harder and stronger than bone and blood. She was as different from the humans around us as I had become. And I'm just so interested in theories about Nesta. Like, is she not fully human? Does she maybe have a different father? Did the gods like make her differently? Like, was she chosen from the start? Is she meant to be the chosen one that's weaving through all these books? I think Nesta is just more, and I mean, we find this out in her book, right? But at that point, she's become High Fae. So I just want to know, like, when she was human, what was different about her? Like, how was she different than every human around her? And I know, like, the easy answer is, personality-wise, like the steel inside of her, but like, I don't know, I kind of think it's something different. I think they're hinting at like something a little more supernatural going on there, and that became more prominent when she became High Fae. But I always wonder if she hadn't become High Fae, if the gods had like another plan for her or something like that. I don't know. I love Nesta. I tagged an Elaine moment. Look at me go. I love the memes that everyone just forgets about Elaine. But Thayer's writing about Elaine, and it says she would have marveled, likely wept, at the gardens I'd become accustomed to, at the flowers in perpetual bloom at the spring court. One of my favorite theories is that Elaine is actually Tamlin's mate, if Tamlin's mate wasn't Amarantha, right? But I'm like, Elaine is so obvious, like throughout the books multiple times, they're like, oh, Elaine looks terrible in Night Court Black. Like, oh, she would blend in perfectly with spring. Like, she is as beautiful as spring. So I think it would make a lot of sense for Elaine to actually be the Lady of Spring. And I think knowing Elaine, she would be fine with not being a high lady. I think she's a little more passive. She doesn't really care about her standing. She just likes, she likes nice things. So I think she would still get those nice things as lady, but she wouldn't necessarily want or care about the power that would differentiate her from being high lady. So I am betting. That's, I'm going to say I bet Elaine is tied somehow to leading the spring court. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, the part of the story we're at now, Feyre is back home in the human world because Tamlin sent her away because things are getting bad, right? Because of the blight. So he sent her away back home. Tamlin also set up like this nice, manor. He restored her family's riches. And so Nesta and Elaine are there. I think her father's on like some trip. Her father's so forgettable. And I think that's the point. He's either there or he's not. I forget. Yeah, and then a couple pages later, Nesta and Feyre are talking, and Nesta is saying how she ended up going after Feyre and how the glamour didn't even fool her. Feyre says, I'd never heard of a glamour not working, but Nesta's mind was so entirely her own. She had put up such strong walls of steel and iron and ashwood that even a High Lord's magic couldn't pierce them. High Lords are supposed to be like the most powerful beings in the entire world. Like, High Lords are supposed to be like second to none, right? So like, how could Nesta's mind as a human negate the glamour of a High Lord? So I'm like, see, Nesta has to be a little bit different from the start, like a little bit supernatural compared to the other humans. And I'm going to stick by that opinion too. Feyre has talked to Nesta, she's talked to her family, and she's found out that Claire Better's family, and remember, Claire Better is the name she gave to Rhysand when he asked what her name was, that their family home has been like burned to the ground, everyone died, and Feyre rightfully assumes that this is a cover-up. Like, I think she probably blames Rhysand, I don't know, but she knows something is wrong. So, Nesta says, go sis, and so Feyre returns to the Spring Court to try to find Tamlin because she knows he's in danger. The Spring Court has been abandoned and ransacked, and Alis is there, and Feyre is talking to her and trying to talk Alis into leading Feyre to wherever Tamlin is being held, which we now know is under the mountain. But there's an interesting part where Aelin is kind of, or not Aelin, gosh, that's the other series. Alis is info dumping on Feyre. And she's talking about like Amarantha and how she works and everything. But she says, Alis says, but we know Amarantha is building her army, biding her time before launching an attack on your world, armed with the most lethal and vicious fairies in Prythian and Hybern. That one's weird, right? Because why wouldn't if Amarantha wanted the human world, whether it was like she wanted to enslave them or why is this blinking? Is this dead? Hang on. I don't know why it was blinking, but I listened to the video back and I could still hear sound, so I hope it doesn't go away. But anyway, I'm wondering why the heck Amarantha doesn't just go like destroy the wall and go back and kill all the mortals or enslave them or whatever it is she wants to do with them. There is literally nothing stopping her. If she has control of all the High Lords, she has Hybern if she wanted it. Like, what? There is literally nothing stopping her from entering the mortal land. So I just don't know why that is even introduced as like a stake of something that like, oh, Amarantha's preparing before launching an attack. She's biding her time. Why? There's no reason for her to do that. She could just take the High Lords she's enslaved and like all the bad creatures, like the bad fairies that she has allied herself with, and she could just go wipe out the mortal lands. It's literally, there are already holes in the wall. And I'm assuming with all the power of the High Lords and all the powers of the Fae there, they could at the very least continue to whittle away at those holes. So there's no reason for her not to go after the mortal lands. Oh, so yeah, now Feyre is sneaking into Under the Mountain, Amarantha's court, and she is caught by the adder. And the description just makes me laugh because it makes me picture an evil Stella Luna. It says, long bony fingers wrapped around my arm. A pointed, leathery gray face came into view, and its silver fangs glistened as it smiled at me. And then, screaming as its bat-like ears. And I'm just like, it's evil Stella Luna. That's the only way I can picture it. Again, page 301. Feyre is introduced to Amarantha. She's, terrified she's under the mountain. The quote is, my bowels turned watery. I couldn't help it. Legitimately, what does this mean? Did Feyre just poo herself? What do you think, Roman? Come here. Did Feyre poop herself? Come here. Come on up. Come here. Hey. He's like, you are just talking to yourself. He says, I'm concerned about you. Then Feyre is continuing to talk to, I think she's talking to Lucien in this scene, but he's just like, why would you come here? How could you be so foolish? And Feyre says, well, I'm here now. I'm here, and there's nothing that can be done about it, so don't bother telling me about my weak human flesh and my stupidity. I really like this aspect of Feyre's characterization. I think she has a good, strong tendency to deal with the situation you have rather than the situation you want, which I think becomes a real strength for her throughout the series. And I liked kind of this, like that reminder that that's one of her core characteristics. See what else we got? Roman joined me on the couch. Hi, buddy. See? Here. Say hi, baby. He says no photos, please. Okay, so this is Feyre is engaging in her first task, and Amarantha is like taunting her, and she says, Feyre, you're ruining everyone's fun. She said it as if I were a lousy shuttlecock partner. And anachronisms really bother me. Is there badminton in this fantasy world? Is there? Like, what? It's clear. Baby, what do you think? Do you think there's badminton in this fantasy world? Maybe. It's just like, I don't know. Like, well, that just felt so out of place, and it took me out of the zone of reading, because I'm like, what? Where have I heard that word before? It's another word for badminton, right? Next up, Feyre has fought the Middengard worm, I think it's called. And I know we're all picturing the worm from SpongeBob. Even with the description in this book, reading it again, I can't not picture the worm from SpongeBob. So she fights the worm. She gets like a nasty injury. Like I think her like forearm bone is poking through her skin. It's really disgusting. But she's talking with Rhysand, and he's like taunting her. He's trying to like push her into accepting his bargain. And so it says, Feyre bares her teeth, go to hell. Swift as lightning, Rhysand lashed out, grabbing the shard of bone in my arm and twisting. A scream shattered out of me, ravaging my aching throat. I just want to know, like, what was the point of having Rhysand do that? Like, legitimately, why did he do that? There was no one around to see him be cruel. Like, that doesn't further his own mission. And if he is as soft towards Feyre as he is, like, thinking he is at this point, what would drive him to, like, physically harm the woman that he's, like, feels tenderness for, like, cares about? Like, they're going to be like the end game in this book, and it's really hard to get over the fact that he's essentially like torturing her into accepting something she doesn't want, which is their bargain. I don't know. I think that was a hard sell into liking Rhysand, especially when it's supposed to be him versus Tamlin. But it's like, oh, Tamlin takes away my autonomy. Like, he locks me in the house. Okay, well, Rhysand tortured you. Like, he gripped your broken bone that's stabbing through your skin. Like, me personally, I'd rather be locked in a room than have my bone gripped. Like, I don't know. I think that was a weird choice from an author perspective. Like, if we're supposed to love Rhysand, which we do, don't get me wrong, why have, like, make him so like, disgustingly mean in that instance? Page 357. The summer court fairy is like being brought before Amarantha. He was like found sneaking about. Amarantha suspects something is wrong. She has Rhysand go into his mind to figure out what it is, and here's the quote. The summer fairy cringed, his face shining with tears. My own bowels turned watery with fear and shame as he wet himself at the sight of Rhysand. What is SJM's fascination with people peeing and pooping themselves in fear? This is just like, it's a meme at this point. It's horrifying. Like, girl, find another way to describe fear. Just please. Because, like, are they cleaning up after this? Like, it's Feyre just sitting in her own filth for the whole book? Like, what is this? You gotta pick a new way to describe fear. The second task arrives. It's the one where Feyre has, like, the riddle she can't read. Lucien is like, just pick one. And the options are 1, 2, 3. And Feyre goes, 2. 2 is a lucky number because that was like Tamlin and me. Just 2 people. And that still makes me laugh, quite honestly. I think it's kind of hilarious. The scenes of the trials and Under the Mountain continue. The second one, yeah, we just discussed, was like the levers she had to pull with the riddle, but she couldn't read, but she picked one and it worked. Then like Rhysand like gets her drunk on fairy wine each night and has her like dance for him in a crowded room in like barely any clothing. And that's also really uncomfortable because like theoretically, if he has Nuala and Caradwyn, I think their names are, like his little like shadow people, like the people who can go in between the shadows, like they can walk through walls and stuff, like they could watch over Feyre in her cell. Like there's no reason he needs to dress her up every night in like panels of see-through clothing and have her dance in a room full of people. I don't know. I think Rhysand is just like a very hard sell in this book, and I don't think SJM does enough to redeem or explain these really, really concerning behaviors. In the next book, it was just kind of like, oh, like, you know, I was doing what I could, you know, it was a really shitty situation, which I agree. But like me personally, I don't know if I could be with someone after they did all that. Like Feyre doesn't even bring it up after this. She's just like, oh, well, he hates me and he's the High Lord of the Night Court and he's a bad guy and like, oh, he's dangerous and he's cruel. But like, I would be taking a much more personal approach. I'd be like, this guy tortured me. He made me dance practically naked and like got me like I would have a lot more issues. But again, maybe because I'm older now. When I was younger and I read this when I was like 20, I was like, Rhysand is so romantic. He's protecting her. He loves her. I'm glad I grew up a little bit more because I would not like that. But anyway, Feyre survives the second task. She goes to her third. It is she has to kill fairies, which this is actually, I feel like it's written really well. It seems very traumatizing, which is completely understandable. The third guy she has to kill is Tamlin, but she realizes from the riddles that he has a heart of stone, so she stabs him, he lives, but then Amarantha tries to kill Feyre, and now we start on our like Rhysand PR journey, where he's like the only one who fights to save her when Amarantha kills her, and then like she sees him through her own head. Okay. And then this is like the next part. It's like they're all fighting. Feyre is either dead or she's come back with the High Lords have like resurrected her or something. But Tamlin is going to kill Amarantha, right? And it says, Tam, Lucian cried out over the chaos. A sword hurtled through the air, a shooting star of steel. Tamlin caught it with a massive paw. Amarantha's scream was cut short as he drove the sword through her head and into the stone beneath. How? With what thumbs? How is he holding a sword and like having the dexterity to move it and stab someone through the head? That just makes no sense. I need SJM to come out with a statement and show me exactly what Tamlin's paws look like because they are described as paws. I swear I'm not making that up. It makes no sense and it bothers me throughout this whole book. Oh, and then after Feyre comes back as High Fae, it's very, very Twilight Vampire coded again, right? Like she's like, oh, the sight of my skin stopped me cold. It gleamed with a strange light, and my fingers seemed longer where I laid them flat on the marble. I pushed to my feet. I felt strong and fast and sleek. I'd become High Fae. That's just like basically the Twilight Vampire. So one of these days I'm going to go through and compare the two because look, Twilight Vampires equal High Fae. Then there's a little scene between Feyre and Tamlin, which kind of harshed the end of the story. Didn't like that. But then Rhysand like tugs on the bond. She meets him on the rooftop. He realizes that they're mates, and he doesn't tell her, which is fine, I guess, at that point. It probably understands that he wants to keep that as a secret. But anyway, Tamlin and Feyre go home, and that is the end of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I still really like this book. I think I rated it, let me check, I think 4 stars. Okay, yeah, I rated it 3.75 stars, so just under 4. I still really like it. I think it's well written. I think it's a great introduction into the ACOTAR series. Obviously, it's like one of those books that you kind of just have to get through in order to like understand the series as a whole. So even if I were doing another reread, I'm not sure I would have been tempted to start with like the first book if it hadn't been so long since I've read it. But I'm gonna say it does hold up now that I have my prefrontal cortex, because I really, really did still enjoy it. But just some things in here, I'm like, really? Like that's what we're going with? I don't know. I liked it. I think it's a good book. I'm in the middle of the second one now, so video coming on that soon. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if I was off base with anything, or if you are also wondering why everyone's bowels are watery and how Tamlin's paws can just catch and dexterously move swords. Those are my big sticking points for the book. But I love the series. I love the ACOTAR universe, and I love the stories. And it's been something that kind of got me into the fantasy, romantasy, if you will, genre. So it was fun to revisit what started it all, and I'm excited to keep reading the series. All right, subscribe for more and leave me a comment on if you think Rhysand also has a lot of red flags and if they are sufficiently dealt with in the second book. Okay, I will see you in the next one. Bye. Roman, say bye.